So basically what I want to talk about is closing every sale, and hopefully repositioning what sales is for you, so you have a different relationship with it. Because when you have a different relationship with it, everything changes. So my journey with sales has been one that, like most of you, has been felt quite very scary at the beginning, and often I put it off. So I wrote my book Grassroots to Green Shoots in 2010, based on a period of my life which was from 2006 to 2008, when I literally crashed and burned in my coaching business. I'd set off very ambitious at 27 and said, I'm going to start this coaching business. Off I go. And I was really, really sure that I could make it happen. And I actually started really well, and I bucked all the trends, and I ended up with 10 clients within the first 6 months, which was absolutely wonderful. And when I spoke to someone who later became my mentor, and I actually ended up taking over her company, she was really surprised by my results, because most coaches didn't achieve that so quickly. But something somewhere snuck into my brain, and it all started to fall apart. And I remember one day sitting at an event with these guys, now called Dent. They were Triumphant Events back in the day. And I was completely and utterly flat broke. With their events, I was already kind of signed up to their membership program, so I could always go, which was wonderful. And they are amazing people. And I sat there and I was complaining that I didn't have any business and I didn't know what to do. And Glenn says to me, Naomi, how many sales presentations have you done in the last month? And I was like, oh, well, more. And whatever came out of my mouth was like full of excuses. And my reasoning was just not even on the path of acceptable. It was all, I'm a coach, I shouldn't have to sell. I'm about helping people. I shouldn't, sales, I just shouldn't have to do it. It's unethical. And he was really clear with me. He said, until you figure this out, you will always be broke. You might as well just go wash dishes, because this business is not going to work unless you're going to be okay with sales. And I got it. I really got it. I got what he was saying. I got the message, but it would take me another 2 years before I was willing to do what he said, which is just crazy. And it was a really weird situation when I look back, and I didn't actually figure it out at the time. But I think it actually pulls on something you said, Karen, earlier on about the things we collect. It was in the breakouts room. We collect things as we go through life, and we have to shake them off. Because I'd actually done a sales job whilst I was at university and received really good sales training for it. And I had worked selling door to door, knocking on people's front doors and selling them frozen food. And I was so good at it that in our teams of 4, my team was always at the top of the list of like the highest selling team in the whole. I think there was about 20 teams in 3 different locations, and my team was always at the top. And one particular week, my team was still at the top, despite the fact I was the only person working in that team. So my team, my scores divided by 4 was still the highest in the whole organization. So it was, I really had the skill. But there were a few crazy situations that actually happened to me whilst I was doing that. There had been a particular street I had worked on one evening, knocking on all the doors. I had sold to one of the households. But when I came back 2 weeks later to follow up on those sales, nobody would answer the door to me. They would open it slightly and slam it, and I couldn't understand why. But something was moving inside of me, this intuition, this knowing of what it actually was. I had taken somebody's sales advice that said, when someone says they can't get the food into their freezer, you just say, well, let me see. And you open the freezer and you put the food in the freezer and go, look, it does fit. And so their objection is gone. And then when they still say no, you say, well, it's too late now because the food's in your freezer. Once it's in your freezer, that's a sell. So now you have to pay us. And yeah, it's not nice, is it? But I used it. I must have been a little green 23-year-old, 22. I was green. I was using this advice. We got to do it wrong to get it right. And I did it. And now that rumor had spread throughout the whole street. And now I was completely like the evil salesperson. I'm now branding myself with it. Like, I didn't know for sure. My intuition told me, but I felt wretched over it. And that feeling started to take root. There was one, this is a funny story, but there's one guy's household. I knocked on his front door And he says to me, no, I can't buy this frozen food from you because I'm moving house in 2 weeks time. And so I don't want any food. I'm eating the freezer out, so I don't have to move all the food. So I don't want to buy it. And I said, yeah, that's absolutely fair enough. No problem. And I walked away. We then had knocked on every door in that particular area. And we decided that we needed to travel 20 miles each day to a completely different area. I mean, it might have been like 30 or 40 miles. It was a long way. I think it was even London to Swindon. It was that far. Okay. So one evening I'm knocking on doors again, and this guy opens the door and I start my pitch and he goes, no, I've already told you I don't want it. I said, sir, I don't know how you can say that. I've never knocked on your front door before. He goes, you did. You knocked on my door 3 weeks ago. I said, I did not, sir. Honestly, this is the first time I've been here. And he says, yes, I did. You did. He gets really irate about it. And he tells me that he's just moved house and I knocked on the door of his old house. And I tried to laugh. I said, come on, we're human beings. Can we not laugh about this? I don't need to sell you frozen food. We could just laugh about it. But he was having none of it. And he was just still yelling at me. And again, that, even though it should be funny, and it's a really real coincidence, it started to rot inside of me and rot. Oh, Naomi's a heavy sales pusher. It's not nice to treat people that way. And I didn't want to be that. And there were a few other things that reflected back on me, that it just started to create this opinion that I'm a hard pushing salesperson. Nobody wants you when you're like that. And so it started to take root. So when it came to doing coaching, I wanted to obviously coach and be supportive of people. And I didn't want to get into that field. I didn't want to be known as that. I didn't want to create that impression in the world. And so I had this really, really difficult relationship with sales and getting results. And that's probably why all of those excuses flew out of my mouth when I was asked that question, and why it took another 2.5 years to get okay with it. And what actually happened is I mentioned a minute ago that a mentor gave me their business, marketing help for coaches. And it had its own natural problems, and I took over those natural problems. So why it started to fail, it was already failing when I took it on. So it wasn't really personal. But again, it came down to, if this business is going to work, I need to do sales, and I need to do sales regularly. But I wasn't doing it. Again, I wasn't doing it. And I didn't know how to get the people onto the phone call in the first place. And so I called up an old mentor, which was actually the original guy I mentioned's business colleague. And they had put all of their sales training into an online course. And so I called him up and I said, could I buy that online course for you? I really need to do my sales and really need to improve my sales skills. And so I did his training, self-study, and I took a job calling people, asking them if they would like some graphic design. So it was a graphic design agency in Covent Garden. They had its heyday, and now they didn't have any marketing. They didn't know what they were doing. And all I could do was Google dentists, for example, and write down all the numbers of all the dentists in London, and then phone them all. And then the next day do a completely different industry and phone all of them. And I was really inspired by Will Smith in the Pursuit of Happiness, where he doesn't even put the receiver down. He just dials. And I thought, that's how you get results. I must behave and work that way. So I did. And I also had this other mentor who was saying that it's possible to do 100 dials in 3 hours. And so I worked my arse off to get that technique, to be seeing the number on the screen that I'd made, writing down every day. I'd write down exactly what I did and tally how many calls I'd made. And I was literally punching a number and saying something. Nope, next one. And I actually achieved it, 300 dials in 3 hours. At which point my bosses said, well, we think that if you can achieve that, then you should be able to do 600 in a day, because that's 6 hours. And I said, well, no, actually, we just need a multiplier effect. I need to be doing 30 to really good leads. But why that was completely nuts, and it didn't get any results, because it was complete cold calling and completely illegal as well. What it did was it really shook me out of that fear around speaking to people and just saying something. So it was a really good experience. And I was really lucky after that, because Mike Clark invited me to come and work for him. And it was his sales training that I had bought. He invited me to come and work with them selling LinkedIn training, which has obviously created the whole path that I'm on now. And then things really started to change in how I went about things. And the key thing I would say is that firstly, one of the biggest blockages to having a sales conversation with somebody is that you don't have a reason to speak to them. If you don't have a reason to speak to them, you have no framework around the conversation, and therefore you are nervous. You would say weird things, or not. I would, but and it just doesn't flow very well. So when I joined that company, we were selling LinkedIn training, and they had said to me, we're doing an event, it starts at 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. We're probably going to get 30 leads from it, and we need you to follow up with those leads. And so I phoned each of those leads, but I had no reason for why I was on the phone with them. I had nothing I was actually pulling them into. So, of course, I had to say to them, well, what's the product? What are we selling? And really firm that up so I had a clear pitch. But still, I couldn't phone them up and just pitch that solution. And I imagine that's why a lot of you feel scared about sales. And John, maybe why you're feeling that block, because you couldn't just phone up a company and say, I help you to keep people that are currently wanting to leave your organization because your values don't match for 2022. And we've got to help you figure this out. Gee, that takes a trained salesperson to be able to deal with the knockback of a cold call every single day, giving your pitch like that. And it's so personal to you as well, because it's your business, it's your message. And when you hear it enough times, you'll start to think your product isn't something that the marketplace wants. But that actually isn't true. The marketplace does want it. It's just how we're going about it. And what we want to avoid is having people say no to us too many times, because they may be saying no to a call right now, not actually no to the solution, and no, you're no good or your product's no good. So we actually don't ever want to get in that position where we're calling up companies cold and telling them what we do and getting pushed back. And so there really is this connection point. Why am I having this conversation with you? Just because you sat at an event and I got your phone number from that event, why am I having this conversation with you? What am I here pushing? What am I doing? And that connection piece is often the biggest reason why we don't do enough sales. And so when I was in that company, I said, well, we need a reason to get people on the call. And I knew very well that what people love the most is to know how well they're doing. And psychological tests is what sells magazines half the time, and find out if you're a good lover, and all the other ones. People go, oh, I'll just take this little quiz and find out. And so I suggested that what we offer was a LinkedIn profile review. I would review your profile for half an hour. And in that time, I could find out all about their business, what their pains and problems were, give them really practical advice about how it would reflect on their LinkedIn profile and what they could do, and then say, would you like to come along to this training? To which the answer was yes. And off we went, doing that for quite some time. So I have literally been doing LinkedIn profiles, I think it must be this year, 10 years. I've been doing LinkedIn profile reviews for 10 years. And I repeated myself a lot. So I wrote my book, What to Put on Your LinkedIn Profile, just for context. But being able to phone people up and saying, great, thank you for attending this event. Would you like me to review your LinkedIn profile? Had them say yes. It also had them volunteer to have a phone call with us at the end of an event. They would literally sign up. And then, because we had online technology then to book your own appointments, we could put it on our LinkedIn profile and people would book themselves in. We could message people and say, hey, this sounds like a really great conversation. Why don't I review your LinkedIn profile for you? And I can get you, and we can have that conversation, and people would book in. And so therefore, there was that connection point. There was that number of sales that were happening that allowed me to do it again and again and again and get really good at it. So really key tip for you guys is, do not do sales appointments sporadically. One at 10 o'clock on Monday, one at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, one at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, because it breaks you out of the flow of the tasks that you're doing, and it doesn't allow you to get any fast circles of learning where you reflect and go, right, I'm going to do it again, I'm going to do it better. What I would recommend is that you bunch all of your sales calls together so you're completely in the mood for it, really efficient use of time, and you just go through them really quick. You just go through them back to back, because you'll start to learn and to grow, and you'll figure something out at the end of one call, and the next call you'll do it better. And it does take 20 minutes to shift from one type of task to another anyway. So your productivity, when you go back and forth from your admin or whatever it is you're doing, will change. So this is a really, really important thing to notice, that the half of your objection will be that you don't know what you're there to say in the first place anyway. But having a call to action, which if you've been on the 7-day challenge, is something that we really work on, is what is that call to action that's going to get that person on the phone with you? What is the review that you can offer? So there are different ways of putting that together, which I'm not going to talk about now. I talk about it in all different mediums, the challenge and the podcast and different things. But in that, it's getting comfortable with why you've got the person on the phone in the first place. When they know what they're on the phone for, and it will put you in control of the conversation. When you are in control of the conversation, you will be able to have a framework. And when you've pre-worked on that framework to identify what are the things I need to know about this person to know if their problem is what they say it is, and it is a problem I can solve, and what is it I need to know about this person in order to want to work with them in the first place, and what do they need to know about me in order for them to know that I'm the right person to help them. When you work all of that out, you then create a framework that you can lead people through that gets you to the outcome that both of you need at the end of half an hour or 45 minutes, but I wouldn't go much longer, to ascertain whether you should be working with each other. And when you've got that guide of the conversation, people will fall into it and they will let you take control of the conversation, and they will thank you for that exploration as well. And this is also part of how we can close every single sale. So closing a sale, we probably all know, means that you achieved the sale and it was won. The person said yes to you. When it comes to closing a sale, yes, I'm going to buy from you. Here's some money. I'll sign the dotted line. That can mean close, but I would also like to suggest that every single person you speak to, the outcome isn't always to sell. The outcome is to build a relationship. The outcome is to leave a favorable impression with them. The outcome is to transform them from where they were now to where they need to get to. And that may be that them coming to a realization that they're not ready for your solution yet, or you're not the right person for them, that their problem actually, as they've diagnosed it, is not as serious as they thought, or even actually it isn't that problem at all. They've got another problem and they actually need to go and work with somebody else. That transformation, when you can lead someone through, that positions you as a trusted advisor. And it means that you're going to lead them feeling very, very grateful for speaking to you and wanting to recommend you to other people. This is what builds your network, far more than a LinkedIn connection where you've got 5,000 LinkedIn connections that people have you never talked to or met. If you've got 30 people that you have transformed in some sense of where they were stuck to moving them forward, even if they didn't buy from you, that is the best word of mouth marketing you could possibly have. And it is the greatest asset you have in the business. Because when someone says, oh, you should really speak to so-and-so, that is currency that gets that person on the call with you and also has them pre-solved and ready to buy from you, because so-and-so said that you were really good, so you must be. So-and-so said this was the answer to my problems and I trust them. You probably are. Let's talk. And so closing every sale is to sell yourself as a new friend or a new trusted advisor. It's not always about the money. And so when you come at it from that perspective, things really, really shift, because now you're now having conversations with strangers you just haven't met yet. That's all somebody is, a stranger you haven't met yet. I once had a client of mine say, I'm really scared about sales and I don't want to do it. I'm an IT person. I've always been in IT. I just want to do rebuild people's servers, but not do the day-to-day job. I want to design them and I want to do lots of them. So he was literally in the expert entrepreneur space, that it was a business for him now. And I said to him, and I just role played and I went, oh, okay. Neil, I just remembered, I spoke to someone the other day and he runs an organization and they're paying for the flat rate of servers at the moment. And they do the adverts, just like you said, that when you work with Money Supermarket, that they have to increase capacity when the advert goes on TV. And then they bring it down again when it's off TV, so that you're paying as you go, not the constant top rate. And I told him this story and he was really interested. And he was wanting to have a conversation with you about you doing that for his organization, because it sounds exactly the same situation. Would you be able to talk to him? He went, oh my God, yeah, could I? Wow. And I said, sorry, I confess I'm actually making this up. But can you see the difference when you could come with your expertise and get really involved in that situation and really look at it and pull it apart? You got excited. That is the difference. That's what we're talking about. These people are just strangers you haven't met yet. They are people that you're going to really enjoy working with, that you can make a great connection with. And so that was like, I just love that example because it really kind of reframes it for you, that when you come at this as a trusted advisor, it really shifts that relationship and it makes it easy. So now you've got a reason to get on the call with somebody, and you've got a transformation you're going through with people that either they buy from you or they don't, but they actually start referring people. So when I started doing LinkedIn profile reviews for the other company, that was one thing. And then I obviously started my own company and continued on doing it. What was interesting I won't share my full story here about how I got the business started, but I was speaking at events and I would say to people, all the things about your LinkedIn profile, if you would like me to review it for you, hand me your business card and we'll sort it out. And people gave me their business cards. And I did exactly what I'm talking to you about. And I think I was converting 4 in 10 sales. So I was hitting my objective. And the people that weren't buying, it was really clear that they weren't ready. They didn't need it. They didn't have the investment. And I couldn't at that point, based on what the assets they had in their business, actually get them a return on investment. And again, not the person who sticks the freezer food in your freezer and tells you that's a purchase. Completely the opposite. The trusted advisor that says, do you know what? Your profile really does need work. I'd love to work on it with you. It is going to cost you £800 to work with me, but I don't think I can get you a return on investment because you don't have a sales process in place. You don't have a call to action that's attractive, and your packages aren't there to be able to sell them, to scale them, to see a return on investment. And people loved it. They loved that honesty. And I loved it too, because I was just being real and authentic. And also I wasn't going to have to take on a job that I felt icky about, that I couldn't get a good result for. And I also wasn't going to leave people talking about me in the local community going, rah, 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 I didn't need that. That was a waste of time. Rah, rah. But what actually happened is that every person that I gave them that really honest advice to and said, don't buy from me right now, you need to sort these other things out. Oh, and by the way, later on I came up with the course. What turned out is they became the biggest referrers of business ever. All of them went out and said, oh, LinkedIn profile, must speak to Naomi. So they actually became the biggest referrers. And again, doing this volume of conversations with people and these assessments, it links your name with the problem. So whenever the problem comes up, your name is associated with it and comes with it. Because you're demonstrating what you do, you're actually turning them into mini experts. Well, apparently what we need to do is the headline, because the headline, and they repeat what you just said. But they can only go so far, and they go, no, honestly, like, this is all the things I learned. Honestly, you need to speak to Naomi. Just go speak to Naomi. And people will pass on these little nuggets that you've given them, and they'll go, oh, that sounds really good. Oh, I must find that out. Oh, that sounds great. And again, that leads them into a conversation with you. So these are really important things to think about: the coming in service, being that trusted advisor, and how you're putting that sales conversation together. And then the other thing is there is another tipping point that will make you feel icky in the sales process, and that is giving the presentation, actually saying, this is what I do, this is the price, and do you want it? So sometimes you can go through that whole framework with people, ask all the questions, and then feel really nervous about saying, okay, this is how I can help you. And I'm actually going to give you absolutely gems worth of information, of a tip here. I mean, this is so valuable. When you have been talking to someone, eliciting all of that private, vulnerable information from them, and then you hit them with, okay, this is the price, it can really break rapport. It can break that trust you just built up with people. So if you haven't set the conversation up right at the beginning, you will feel uncomfortable, and you will feel, I can't make this presentation right now. And you either don't, and therefore don't close, or you do, but somehow you violated the trust relationship you've got, and now you've lost that person. And also they're not going to refer you because they know that it's a lovely conversation you're going to have is going to be hit with a heavy sales pitch at the end. Heavy, it will just feel heavy because it wasn't in rapport with everybody. God, I look really pale today, don't I? So how do we actually get around that? It's at the beginning of the conversation. we have to set out, this is not a nice, just a nice conversation. It's not a chat. It is, we're here for a purpose. We're here to find something out, i.e. your framework. We never use that word though. But what we can say in the beginning script is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you lots of questions about, and I'm going to find out about, and then I'm going to give you this advice and pinpoint points. And then if we feel that there's a connection between us and I can deliver you a solution, at the end, you can either ask me about my package and how I help people, or, oh, I'm messing that up. I say it all the time and now I'm messing it up. But basically you're asking for permission to pitch. So if we feel that there's a match at the end, I can tell you about how I can work with you in the packages that I have available. But if we feel there's not a connection, no worries, no obligation. We don't have to have that conversation at all. We're just here to have a nice conversation. And they go, oh, right, okay. And 9 times out of 10, what you'll find is you'll get to a point, and at the point at which they are sold, they will ask you, they will tell you that they're sold by saying, okay, cool. And how do you structure your packages? What's the price of this? And they will ask you. There couldn't be a better way for it. An indication that they're hooked and they're on. And you just get to tell them. And if they're giving you a yes they're most likely giving you a yes on the price and working with you as well. If that doesn't happen, you just go, cool. And so anyway, has that been helpful? Yes, give me some reflections. Cool. Would you like me to tell you now tell you how I can work with people? And you can pretty much tell in their tone, they're going to let you pitch them, because you've given them so much already and you've asked permission. And so you'll say your pitch, say what it is, and they'll say yes or no. Or you might, if you've had to ask, then you're probably on the less likely to sell to that person. But I won't throw that on you, because once that's in your mind, actually, then you might feel that and then it'll impact the sell anyway. So don't take that on entirely. But it does, it allows you, once you said what it is, the person's like, oh yeah, okay. And they can think through what it is. So a sales appointment is you having that conversation and that framework. A presentation is when you get to actually say, this is what I do, would you like it? And ask the buying question. So there are 2 different types. Sometimes you'll just feel, no, I'm not going to tell you how I work with people, because I just don't think there's a match here. I don't want the business. I don't think you're an ideal client. I don't think you can get return on investment. We've had a lovely time. Thanks very much. And you can say to them, yeah, if anybody else you know that's got this problem would like to go through this, have this conversation with me, forward them to me, So there are some really good reasons why sales can feel horrible. We really need to get these things in place, because when we do, we'll start to feel a lot more confident. We'll start to get out of our own way. We'll be able to phone people up after an event and say, hey, we met, would you like me to book you in for this session? We'll be able to lead that conversation, so it's not just a chit chat, and we will be able to ask permission to pitch and get more pitching going. There's just so many reasons and benefits in there. So this is an area that I just cannot stress enough has to be taken care of. You may not want to go and spend 6 months like banging off dialing numbers all the time, but it really is about coming from a heart space of love and connection, really, that I'm here to connect with you, to see how I can serve you, and let's see if we want to move forward, and not from a headspace. I think we've all spoken to people who are coming from a headspace and needing to hit the end of month sales quota, and we know we're just a cell. We know we're just a number. So figuring this out is really important. When time slips. When we don't hit our target every month, we really, really feel it. And you end up becoming the person like me, sitting on the table going, oh, my business is failing, I've got no sales. And a slap around the face of, how many sales presentations did you do? It's the first question. If you do not put yourself out there, you ain't going to get it back. So you need to know what your sales targets are. You need to know how many sales conversations you need to have, and you need to be having them. There are some very good reasons why you might feel uncomfortable and not want to do that. We've just gone through what those are. And those expenses, they add up every single month. And eventually they get to the point, as they did for me in 2008, where every credit card is maxed out, overdraft is maxed out. There's no more moving money around to pay for a transfer fee to a new minimum 0% credit card. And it's absolutely financial game over. That happened to me in 2008, and it took me 10 years to get out of it. I'm here to make sure you don't do that. If you want to know how I did that and all that went into it, my book Grassroots to Green Shoots is the book for you. So on that note,